We all remember the terror we felt watching The Mist, 2007, the sudden emergence of unspeakable creatures from a mysterious fog. But what if a human could step through the very portal from which these monsters came? Imagine entering that otherworldly realm. What sensations would overwhelm you? What eerie sights would unfold before your eyes? Could a human survive in a dimension so alien? And what kind of beings might you encounter there? If we go by other literature of Stephen King's universe, the Arrowhead Project inadvertently opened a gateway to Todash space, a bleak, dimensionless, Lovecraftian void lying between realities, where conventional laws of physics and life simply break down. In this video, we're diving deep into this what-if scenario, exploring every detail of what it might mean for a human to venture into Todash space, from the bizarre sensory experiences to the profound existential challenges and the strange, often malevolent inhabitants that call this void home. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. What exactly is Todash space? Before going deep into our subject matter, let's clear our concepts about Todash space first. It is conceptualized as a dimensionless void, an interstitial realm that exists between our familiar universe and other, far more alien realities. Unlike the structured dimensions that govern our day-to-day existence, Todash space offers no comforting constants, no gravity to hold us down, no reliable laws of physics to shape our interactions, and no predictable flow of time to orient our thoughts. Instead, it is an expanse where chaos reigns, where the very fabric of reality seems to be in a state of constant, unfathomable flux. Within King's cosmology, Todash space occupies the dark gap between realities, making it a fitting arena for the manifestation of cosmic horror. It is not simply a physical location, but a state of being, a condition where human biology and even consciousness may begin to unravel. The void is populated by entities and phenomena that operate on principles entirely alien to earthly life. These beings, whether fully sentient or driven by primal instincts, are as much a part of Todash space as the oppressive darkness and shifting energies that define it. The sensory experience. What would one perceive? The first, and perhaps most disconcerting challenge for a human entering Todash space would be the overwhelming alteration of visual perception. In a realm defined by its inherent darkness, the absence of conventional light is not merely an empty void, but a presence in itself, a dense, palpable darkness that seems to possess its own substance. At first, the eyes would be overwhelmed by the sheer absence of expected stimuli. Traditional visual cues that guide our understanding of space and depth would vanish, replaced by a murk that is both impenetrable and unnerving. As the traveller's vision begins to adapt, the mind might start to decipher vague silhouettes or shapes, but these are hardly the comforting outlines of familiar objects. Instead, they are the ambiguous, shifting forms of entities, or even mere aberrations in the void, hints at structures and life forms that operate under entirely different rules. The adaptation process itself could lead to profound distortions in colour perception. In Todash space, colours may not exist in the way we understand them. Instead, one might witness hues and shades that do not correspond to any known spectrum. There could be flashes of cold, distant light, perhaps the reflective glimmer of unseen eyes, or portals leading to other realities. Such phenomena would be disorienting as the brain struggles to reconcile the input with its ingrained expectations of what light and colour represent. Over time, the once familiar concepts of brightness and darkness might blend into an inextricable tapestry of surreal imagery, leaving the traveller caught between what is real and what is a trick of the void. The process would be akin to watching an old, broken film reel, each frame a glimpse of something both fascinating and horrifying, an invitation to a world that is forever beyond the reach of normal perception. In this environment, the visual field itself becomes a battleground, where every shadow and glimmer holds the potential for both revelation and terror. Beyond the assault on the eyes, a human stepping into Todash space would encounter a total sensory disintegration that extends to every other sense. The auditory experience in this void could oscillate between a stifling silence that presses in on the mind and sudden, inexplicable bursts of sound that seem to emanate from nowhere. Imagine the phenomenon of hearing whispers that defy directionality, voices that carry the weight of millennia, yet lack the clarity to form form coherent thought. These auditory hallucinations, or perhaps real echoes of a realm unfathomable, would serve as constant reminders that even in the absence of light, Todash space is anything but empty. Touch, too, would betray the traveller. The sensation of physical contact might be completely distorted. The skin could experience an eerie simultaneity of extreme sensations. Cold that seeps into the bones, paired with an intermittent burning pressure that seems to originate from all sides at once. This contradictory feedback would leave the body in a state of perpetual confusion, as if each nerve ending were receiving conflicting instructions from an alien environment. The tactile experience might even extend into an inexplicable sense of weightlessness, interspersed with moments of inexplicable force, making it difficult for the traveller to gauge the true nature of their physical surroundings. Furthermore, the olfactory and gustatory senses would not be spared. In Todash space, smells might emerge that are entirely foreign to the human mind. Acrid, metallic odours that carry a sense of decay or a sharp tang reminiscent of a long-forgotten era. Tastes, too, could be distorted to the point where the very act of eating or drinking might trigger adverse reactions. The chemical composition of this dimension might interact with the body's receptors in unexpected ways, leading to flavours that are at once repulsive and oddly compelling. In this strange interplay of sensory inputs, the traveller would quickly learn that every sense is under siege, a relentless barrage of stimuli that does not adhere to any familiar logic, and that ultimately leaves the human experience fragmented and overwhelmed. Physical effects on the human body. The moment a human being crosses into Todash space, the body's survival mechanisms would trigger an immediate and violent response. The environment, lacking the basic necessities of Earth, most notably breathable air, would force the respiratory system into a state of acute distress. Without the proper oxygenation, the body's cells would begin to falter almost immediately, while toxic or unknown compounds in the void might trigger severe poisoning. In addition to respiratory failure, the human nervous system would experience a profound shock. Extreme vertigo would set in as the lack of gravity or consistent spatial reference points disrupts the inner ear's balance, leading to disorientation that could result in a complete loss of coordination. The physical sensations would be compounded by an overwhelming chill that penetrates beyond mere skin-deep cold. This is not a simple drop in temperature. It is an invasive, bone-penetrating cold that rapidly saps the body's core heat. Muscles might spasm uncontrollably, and the heart could struggle to maintain its rhythm as the body attempts to counter the barrage of environmental stressors. In some cases, the overwhelming sensory overload might provoke involuntary convulsions or seizures. The body's cells would react to the alien energies permeating the void, with cellular membranes becoming unstable and vital biochemical reactions slowing down to a halt. Each of these immediate reactions, respiratory distress, vertigo, severe hypothermia, and cellular breakdown, would work in tandem, pushing the body to its absolute limits. Within minutes, what was once a fully functioning human form could devolve into a mass of struggling tissues, caught between life and the inevitable collapse of biological order. The stark realization would set in that Todash space is not merely a different location, but an existential threat to every facet of human physiology. But in contrast to this theory, we have seen creatures in the mist 2007 with biological structures that allowed them to breathe and roam around easily in our reality. This suggests there may be a chance that the human body could sustain a few years in that environment, albeit in a very debilitating state, since there must be breathable air at the very least. However, this concept could be entirely wrong if the creatures we saw in the mist possess more advanced systems than us and were able to adapt to our reality by making physiological changes in their bodies when they arrived. If, against all odds, a human were to endure more than a few fleeting moments within Todash space, the long-term physical repercussions would be both profound and irreversible. The human body is finely tuned to the conditions of Earth, and sustained exposure to the alien energies and radiation present in Todash space would initiate a cascade of genetic and cellular mutations. Over time, these mutations could lead to severe tissue deterioration as cells lose their capacity to regenerate regenerate properly or function in unison. The very blueprint of human biology, the DNA, could become compromised by persistent exposure to unknown radiations, resulting in errors during cell division that might eventually cause systemic collapse. Prolonged exposure might also trigger bizarre forms of physical transformation. In an attempt to adapt to the radically different environment, the body could undergo metamorphosis at the cellular level. What starts as a defensive mutation might evolve into a complete alteration of physiological structure. Organs could mutate in ways that render them unrecognizable. Sensory systems might reorganize to try to comprehend the strange stimuli, and muscle tissues could recalibrate to a rhythm dictated by the alien energies surrounding them. In some hypothetical scenarios, the human form might slowly transform into an entirely new being, one that retains only a faint echo of its original self. These alterations, while perhaps ensuring a form of survival in a hostile environment, would come at the steep cost of losing the very qualities that define humanity. Ultimately, prolonged contact with Todash space would not just harm the body, it would redefine it, leaving behind a creature that is less human with every passing moment. The psychological toll of encountering Todash space would likely be as destructive, if not more so, than its physical hazards. This mental overload could rapidly devolve into a sense of cognitive disintegration. The traveller might find that familiar thought processes begin to unravel, replaced by an array of fragmented ideas and sensations that are impossible to integrate. The logical faculties, so reliable in Earth's stable environment, could be replaced by a primitive, almost animalistic urge to survive, a state that erodes the very notion of individual identity. In this immediate aftermath, the person would face not only the terror of the unknown, but also the breakdown of their own mental framework. The result might be a rapid descent into a form of insanity characterized by delirium, paranoia, and an overwhelming sense of existential dread. Should a human manage to endure the initial shock and remain conscious in Todash space, the extended psychological effects would likely prove to be even more insidious and long-lasting. The continuous exposure to such alien phenomena would leave deep, indelible marks on the psyche. Over time, the persistent sensory and cognitive assaults would begin to erode the traveller's grasp on reality. The initial panic and disorientation could give way to a chronic state of anxiety, where every moment is haunted by the memory of inexplicable horrors. Over the long term, the traveller might even develop an entirely alien mode of cognition, one that no longer aligns with the common human experience. In extreme cases, the psychological toll could lead to a complete breakdown of identity, where the person no longer recognizes themselves as human. The inhabitants of Todash space. One of the most chilling aspects of Todash space is the presence of entities that are as alien as the void itself. Not all malevolent beings would be mere animals or instinct-driven creatures, like we saw the entities from the Mist 2007 movie. There will other who are imbued with a form of awareness that appears to be tuned to the suffering inherent in Todash space, often compared to the dark, demonic figures found in King's other works, such as Tak from Desperation, or even the amorphous terror of It. These entities represent an ancient, malevolent intelligence that exists purely to instill fear and despair. Their presence is not limited to physical form. They are the very embodiment of cosmic horror, often perceived through fleeting shadows or as distant, cold lights that seem to watch the hapless traveller. Encounters with these beings would be harrowing beyond description. Their movements might be unpredictable, as if they defy the linear constraints of time and space, and their forms could shift so rapidly that they leave only the faintest impression on the human mind. The mere act of observing these entities could induce profound terror, as the traveller is forced to confront the reality that there exist intelligences utterly indifferent to human suffering, and perhaps even deriving pleasure from it. The malevolent entities of Todash space seem to operate on a different set of rules, their motivations inscrutable, and their methods of interaction both subtle and overtly horrifying. The interplay between the observer and the observed in this alien environment creates a feedback loop of terror, where the awareness of being watched by something truly other becomes a constant, unyielding presence in the mind. While the malevolent aspects of Todash space are among its most well-documented horrors, the possibility of non-hostile encounters cannot be entirely discounted. Within the vast, indifferent void, there may exist entities, or even lost travelers, who are not actively hostile, but are instead instead as bewildered by the strange conditions as any human would be. These might be beings that have, over eons, adapted to the alien physics of Todash space, or perhaps other souls who have been inadvertently trapped in this realm. Although these entities may not pose an overt threat, their very existence in such a hostile environment hints at the possibility that not all inhabitants of the void are malevolent. They could represent a form of neutrality, a survival mechanism that, while not aggressive, remains profoundly incompatible with human life. Even if these non-hostile entities were to offer a semblance of communication or cooperation, any interaction would be fraught with danger. The fundamental differences in perception, language, and even the very nature of existence between a human and a being adapted to Todash space could lead to unintended harm. The uncertainty inherent in such encounters would add another layer of complexity to an already nightmarish scenario. Survival prospects. For any human being thrust into Todash space without preparation, the prospects for short-term survival are, by all accounts, abysmal. The moment of entry would unleash a cascade of environmental hazards that the body is not equipped to handle. One must go into this world with proper suits that are designed to provide air, food, and water. Plus, the person going into this world must have weapons to deal with the creatures. In addition to these direct physical threats, the psychological shock induced by the environment would compound the survival challenge. Each moment in Todash space would bring a new wave of terror, eroding not only the body's defenses, but also the mental resolve needed to combat the overwhelming forces arrayed against them. Hence, some type of extreme psychological conditioning is required. In the unlikely event that a human could overcome the immediate hazards of Todash space, the challenges of long-term adaptation would be no less severe. The fundamental incompatibility between human physiology and the environmental conditions of the void means that any prolonged exposure would necessitate a complete and perhaps irrevocable transformation of the body and mind. Over time, the constant assault from unknown radiations, bizarre energy fields, and radically altered physical laws would force the body to reconfigure itself if survival were even remotely possible. Such reconfiguration might manifest in the form of genetic mutations, profound alterations in cellular function, and a reorganization of the sensory organs in an effort to process the unorthodox stimuli of Todash space. Hence, the suit must have qualities that it keeps everything inside intact and absolutely safe from outside interference. Hence, the person roaming in the Todash space can never take off this special, which in turn means they can't stay there for a prolonged period of time. Reproduction in Todash space. One of the most profound implications of human travel into Todash space is the near impossibility of reproduction under such alien conditions. Human reproduction is a delicate, intricate process that depends on a stable environment, one where cellular functions, hormonal balances, and even psychological states can operate in concert. Todash space, with its erratic and unpredictable energies, does not provide the necessary conditions for these processes to occur normally. The hostile atmosphere, characterized by unknown radiations and a lack of conventional elements such as oxygen and water, would severely disrupt every stage of human reproduction. From the moment of conception to the development of the embryo, the biological processes that sustain life would be compromised, leading to developmental anomalies or even outright failure to develop. Furthermore, even if a fertilized embryo could somehow survive in this hostile environment, the continued exposure to the unique and damaging energies of Todash space would likely result in severe genetic mutations. These mutations might lead to the emergence of offspring that bear little resemblance to their human progenitors, if they are recognizable as human at all. The inevitable alteration of DNA over time would not only affect the viability of the species, but might also create beings that are utterly unsuited to interact with life as we know it. In this sense, the reproductive process in Todash space could be viewed as a form of evolutionary pressure, so extreme that the very concept of human lineage might be irrevocably lost. The inherent impossibility of stable, long-term reproduction under these conditions further underscores the idea that Todash space is not a realm for human life, but rather an environment where even the most fundamental aspects of existence, such as procreation, are systematically thwarted by forces beyond our control. In the end, the establishment of any form form of permanent human habitation in Todash space is not just impractical, it is fundamentally incompatible with the nature of the void. In confronting the darkness that exists between worlds, we are reminded of the fragility of our own existence. It is a realm where the human spirit, no matter how indomitable, may ultimately be overwhelmed by the vast, indifferent void, a stark, eternal warning to the fact that some doors once opened may never be closed again. This brings us to the end of this video. What do you think? Do you want to travel to a world like this? Let us know your perception of the Todash space, and if you liked the video, drop a subs for us. See you in the next one, and be safe.